Welcome, theatre addicts. My name is Danielle Benson, and I am standing outside the Waterfront Theatre, about to go into the show Ruby Rocket Returns by Stacey Halal. I hope that's how it's pronounced. I'm quite excited for this. It is another improvised noir detective story, but this one is not a radio show. It is, I guess, more traditional improvised theatre. I don't know. I'm pretty excited. I haven't seen a noir show in a couple of years, and it's a genre that I really enjoy. So improvise, for me, I do love good improvisation, but for me it is very much like hit and miss. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I don't. So I will promise I will give you as balanced a review as I possibly can, and I will see you after the show. Ruby Rocket did not disappoint with the endless noir dialogue and banter and poetic language. I really enjoyed that show. Which I'm glad for, because I don't always enjoy improvised comedy, but I really did enjoy that. So I think what happens is that the actress who plays Ruby Rocket is always the same, and she may even bring in just different improvisers every night for a completely improvised show. I was expecting more interaction from the audience, like needing suggestions from the audience. And she did do it once, and I thought the premise was really good, because she comes on as this like gumshoe private dick with a drinking problem, and that was kind of why she can't remember the story and the case, and so asking questions of the audience. And I wish she'd done that more, because she was definitely, I mean, the other improvisers were great, considering I think they just got roped into a show, but she was definitely the strongest performer by a long shot, and the most dedicated and the most full in her character. So I was hoping for more kind of like asking for suggestions in the audience at different times as part of this I have a really bad short-term memory shtick, and trying to find something like that. So that would have been awesome. I did enjoy it a lot. Some bits of the improvisation were just a little too loose for my liking. I did really enjoy, there was a mix of a lot of attention to detail and then just not listening to each other occasionally, which I think is what happens, especially when you don't have a troupe that's used to working together. So it sounds like these might have been, and I don't know, I'm gonna have to try and find this out somewhere because it's not in the program. If you do have a group of people who aren't consistently working together, I think you have to really, really concentrate to pay attention to what they've been saying. So there were a couple of things that were drops and kind of inconsistencies, but most of the time there was actually a lot of attention to detail and like bringing back of jokes that had been made earlier. And again, this is all improvised, so that takes a lot of concentration and awareness. As an audience member, you're obviously going to be aware of everything that's going on, so sometimes there were one or two inconsistencies that did bother me, but it was just so charming. There was live music, so it was just a couple of boxes on stage to use as set as necessary, and then a piano with a pianist, which was really cool, and it was kind of scored very inobtrusively, but very appropriate to what was going on. So it was really nice to have that live music in the background all the time, just setting the scene and setting it really well. You really have to hand it to the main performer, Stacey, and again, I'm not sure about the pronunciation of the name, Halal. She's from the US, she's touring the show, and her dedication to the character, she's obviously really enjoying what she's doing. She's got a very full personality on stage, and that is something that I think, especially at the Waterfront Theatre, because it's a larger theatre, you're doing improv, which always requires slightly larger than life characters, and she's got a very full presence on stage. It really works when she's interacting with the audience, when she's doing something completely outrageous. She sells it. She really sells it very well. And for this performance, because I think it's different every night, I felt that there was one male in the cast, and he was very sweet and pretty fast on his feet, but he didn't have that full presence that's needed to fill this kind of theater. It's a very large space. Although the other two women were also quite dedicated and quite strong in their characters. It was charming to see. It was charming to see them as they're making something up. There was a bit of self-conscious laughing in between when they would crack themselves up, which can be charming, although at the same time it does break that suspension of disbelief. So I'm half on that. I enjoy it, like as an audience member, I enjoy seeing performers enjoying themselves, but also it does take a little bit away from the strength of the story. and the strength of the performances. So it happens. It's always going to happen in improv, but I always like it when they can really stick to the character and manage to not crack the actor up. If the actor can avoid laughing, that's always better for me. But that said, it is actually quite charming. There was a lot of like in-jokes and asides to the audience, which I really appreciated. I thought they did a really good job of bringing things full circle and of incorporating ideas that had come up earlier, and just making everything kind of tied together. I would love actually to see a slightly more structured version of this show, because I think it has a lot of potential. These characters have a lot of potential, and if it was a bit more structured, maybe less improvised or like half improvised, this could be a really like amazing show. It was very entertaining as it was. I did enjoy it, and especially if you enjoy improv, you'll probably enjoy it even more than I do, because it's not usually my genre. The costumes are great, very simple but very fitting to the theme, to the genre, to the atmosphere. I mentioned already that the set was quite bare. They did, though, have this multimedia screen, so it is advertised as, I believe, comedy, multimedia, physical comedy. Didn't see a whole lot of physical comedy, but I suppose it's there inherent in the comedy itself. But there was a screen on the back, and they have cameras where they're filming the actors live. So they're transposing that over scenes of the city. So wherever they're supposed to be, like if it's in the streets or outside, they're transposing close-ups of their face or them interacting. And that was quite cool. It added a lot to the atmosphere. It wasn't necessary. I don't feel like it added a lot to the story, but it was really cool, and I did appreciate it, and it built atmosphere. So, hey, if you can, why not? One device that I really did appreciate was there was side spots. So a spot on each side, so that when the main character, Ruby Rocket, wanted to do an aside to the audience, she would walk over to one side and address the audience, and the spotlight would find her, and then she could do this kind of talking to the audience and then walk back into the scene. And it was that device itself was, I mean, it's a really smart device, because it allows the actors to improvise, but also to kind of give the tech directions as well, which is great because it adds that tech structure in it. But also, she did manage to find her light every time, but not always straight away. So she'd walk over, and the light would turn on, and she'd be in the shadow, and she'd run into the light, and that added some of the comedy as well, and it added some of that feeling of audience participation, like we were there with them while they're creating this play. And I thought it was a really clever device, and I really appreciated the comedic aspect of running around and trying to find your lights. There were some really beautiful lines in this play, and it made me wonder how improvised this was. There were lines like "the streets have been crying with rain," and a lot of really beautiful poetic noir type poetry phrases that I don't know how improvised. If those were improvised, they were damn good. So hats off to Stacey for making up that kind of beautiful language on the spot. And even if it wasn't made up on the spot, hats off to making it up in the first place. I really enjoyed the asides. I really enjoyed the narration and the depth and the richness of the language. It really got really gritty. It got really beautifully dark, and you could really smell the rain coming off the streets in parts of that. So I really enjoyed that a lot as well, as someone who likes language. I'm Danielle Benson, and I have been reviewing Ruby Rocket Returns by Stacey Halil, I believe, and some unnamed improvised actors at the Waterfront Theatre. It's going to be different every night, so take a friend, go a couple of times. It's a really great time, and if you love improvised comedy, and especially if you love the noir genre, they do a really good job. I would heartily recommend it. I saw Sunday's performance, which was about a brooch. If you saw a different performance and you'd like to share different language that you enjoyed, different highlights of different performers, if there's a rotating cast every night, please do share your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Theatre Addicts for more reviews and interviews as they come up.